Hello everyone, today I'm gonna present our report about predicting airplane delays. It's from Sandbox Project, from Furiel Hisham and Oscar Hidayatullah Tama. This dataset contains schedule and actual departure and arrival times reported by certified US air carriers that account for at least 1% of domestic scheduled passengers. This data was collected by the U.S. Office of Airline Information, Bureau of Transportation Statistics. This dataset contains date, time, origin, destination, airline distance, and delay status of flight for flights between 2013 and 2018. Target of the sandbox is to process and create the dataset from download zip files and perform exploratory data analysis and then establish a baseline model and move from a simple model to an assembled model and then perform hyperparameter optimization and check feature importance. First, step 1, we will, we will collect the data. Collection of the data is done by downloading and extracting all the zip files. This first process took a while since there are 60 CVC files in total. And from that data, we found that the delay data is relevant to customers to predict a delay caused by weather is arrival delay indicator is RDEL 15. This means if an airplane's arrival has more than 15 minutes of delay, the outcome will be 1. This means yes. Therefore, we can use this column as the target feature for the model. We renamed this column into is delay. And the next step is we pre-processing the data with in this data we know that there's 22,540 missing columns and we will dropping all the missing columns. And from data exploration we found that the 80% of flight arrive on time, but the 20% didn't arrive on time. The most delays that occur in a year are in the months of May, June, July, and August. In this prompt, May, July, June, and August. And for the week is Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday has relatively higher delays in comparison to other days. And for the percentage of delay is higher at night than during the day. And the next step, we split the data and then make a baseline model evaluation, and from that data we get the accuracy is 79.01% and the AUC is just 0.5. So we want to improve the classifier performance, so we choose to add more features. The first features is using a SG boosts performance, and from that we got the accuracy improvement, which is 80.29%. However, ROC showed a little improvement, is 0.54. And then we use the hyperparameter optimization, and from the data we can find the accuracy is more improvement, which is 80.37%, and the ROC also showed improvement, now is 0.55. So the conclusion in this module, we learned how to extract CSV files and select the features to be implemented into a pandas data frame. We also learned how to explore the data, and also we learned about training the process, test the process, the data, and we learned how the implementation of different features can improve or higher the performance metrics of the baseline model, which is the XGBoost and the hyperparameter optimization. So by using that model, we can see the improvement of the performance metrics.
So what this notebook shows is to create a prediction model inside Amazon SageMaker. Here we have a data set. It's about wine quality. So we're trying to predict whether which factors or which features, uh, how each features affect the quality of the wine. So here we have the steps that we're gonna take uh, to reach that model. So here we go. We have uh, statistical analysis using pandas, uh, and then use the charts again to visually analyze before the actual training. Split the data into training, validation, and test the data sets, and train an XGBoost model in Amazon SageMaker. Alright, good. So now here we have the contents inside the data set. Here we have 10 features, and there don't seem to be any null values, so that's good. We don't have to change anything. We don't have to imputate, do any imputation. So next, here we have the characteristics. We can see that there's 1,599 rows and 12 columns. Okay, good. Yeah, 12, not 10. Here we have the heat map, correlation heat map. We can see which of these features affect quality the most. So here already we can tell that alcohol is the brightest, uh, with the number 0.48, and compare it with the rest of the features. Yeah, this one seems to be the highest. The second highest being sulfates, which is only 0.25. So what we can do then is, oh yeah, here's the ranking of the correlation value. Again, alcohol number 1, sulfate number 2, and so on. And oh yeah, since these two are the highest, we're gonna plot a scatter graph to explore their relationship further. Again, we've done this using a scatter plot, and there don't seem to be any correlation between those two. So yeah, not much to do there. and but those two, alcohol and sulfate, because they have the highest um, value of correlation, we're gonna try to figure out the quality of the alcohol in correlation to those values. So for example, would a higher level of alcohol and sulfate result in good quality of wine? Or and then we're gonna look at the quality of the wine if the alcohol and sulfate levels are low. Here we have the uh, high as high as blue and low as red. So yeah, so the higher level of alcohol and sulfate, it does give a greater quality of the wine. So moving on, here's an imputer, but we don't need to do this because there's no missing values in the data or any unique values for that matter. All right, so now here's the model training. So before, so we first need to change these features. So we have the quality of the wine as the target feature, and we're gonna map these. We're gonna map this feature so that so the number, so the outcome of the quality is reduced, but well, not reduced. It's changed to a lower number. Beforehand, prior to mapping this, the lowest value was 3, and then the highest was 8. Now 3 becomes 0, 4 becomes 1, and so on until 5. So here's the data split. We have what we're doing is splitting the data into 80% for training, 10% for testing, and 10% for validating. So here's the shape. Training data has 1,279 columns and rows, sorry, and 12 columns, and so on. Yeah, yeah, and 12 target features. Sorry. So 12 is the target feature. That's the Y value. So again, yeah. So that's how you create the baseline model in Amazon SageMaker. Moving on, uh, we're gonna hyperparameter tune it to increase the accuracy of the model. So we can do this by first uploading the training model into Amazon S3 bucket. You have to do this before fitting the model into an XGBoost algorithm. Now that the data is in the S3 bucket, we have to create input channels in order to call back the um, the model in the SageMaker notebook. So each input channels correspond to the data that was previously stored in Amazon S3, and yeah, this the estimator uses the training data. The estimator uses the training data from these input channels to fit into the model. So here we go. Now we can properly hyperparameter tune it. So the parameter grids that we're gonna be using or taking into uh, yeah, the relevant parameter grids. We're gonna have alpha. So alpha is the regularization value. So the more regularized it is, you could say, then uh, it can improve the performance. And we have min child weight. So that's the sum of all weights of all observations, and it's used to control overfitting. Again, the higher this value is, the more regularization there is in the training and subsample. So that's basically you it's used to reduce overfitting and improve the training speed, but too much subsampling can lead to underfitting. And ETA, that's also known as learning rate, which controls the step size the optimizer makes updates to the model parameters. So the smaller the ETA, the more accurate the models, but at the cost of slower training process. And norm round, so that's number of boosting in the training. So boosting definition of boosting is basically an ensemble method that involves training a series of weak models and correcting them to create a better and stronger model. And increasing the number of rounds can lead to better model performance, but again at the cost of slower training time. So here it is. Uh, that's the training job, and here are the results. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching.
Hello everyone. So for my final project, um, so me and Aska did this project, and for our final project, it's gonna be about prediction of diabetes results in patients using logistic regression. So about this data set, uh, so all the patients here are at least 21 years old, of, and they are female. So the target of this final project, it's going to be predicting which patients have diabetes or not based on the diagnostic measurements taken from the dataset, and also we're going to find out which features in the dataset are have the most impact on the outcome of patients, whether they have diabetes or not. So these are the steps that we have taken to create our prediction model. So first we have data loading, exploration, pre-processing, data visualization, data split, and model training. Okay, so we're gonna first off load the dataset using the pandas library, using the PD read CSV function. And so inside the data, here we have 9 columns: pregnancies, glucose, blood pressure, skin thickness, insulin, BMI, diabetes, pedigree, function, age, and outcome. Alright, so the outcome, uh, it gives off a value of 0 or 1, 0 being negative, for 0 being no presence of diabetes, and 1, which means 1 being uh, tested positive for diabetes. Alright, and so here we're gonna check. So the outcome is the target feature that we are going to use, and so for so these are the data types inside. We have no missing values. That's good. And okay, so about the data itself, we can use df.describe. So what this does is it gives off the quantity, average, standard deviation, minimal value, and the lower and upper quartile, and the maximum value. Okay, pretty clear. And so about regarding the contents inside, here we have a problem actually. We can see that in the minimal values we have glucose 0. We have 0 glucose, 0 blood pressure, 0 skin thickness, 0 insulin, and 0 BMI. And what we already know in real life, That's impossible for a human being to have none of these inside their body. So we're gonna change that. What we're gonna do is, um, so for the values that have 0, so here it is, glucose, blood pressure, and the others. We are going to replace them with a mean plus a random number using random seed times standard deviation minus random number times 2 and times standard deviation. So we don't just use the mean outright, because that would mean that the average value would be accumulated in the end. It's gonna hinder our result, like not having the expected outcome. So what we're gonna do is give it a little bit of randomness. So that's what the data set looks like after the imputation. Okay, so far so good. And here we have visualization. So here we have the amount of patients that are not that don't have diabetes and have diabetes, and these are the features that this is a distribution plot showing all the features which we can tell by, like, visually which of them are in correlation to the outcome. So here we have pregnancies. There's not much correlation there, like the more pregnancies you have, but actually there's a bit. So the more pregnancies you have, the more likely you are to get diabetes, so just by looking. And here we have it's very clear. So what this shows is the higher glucose levels there are in your body, in the body of the patients, then they're more likely to get diabetes from it. So here, as you can see, like the more, yeah, and the rest, they don't seem to have any correlation apart from BMI. There's just one, it's not much of a trend. So like apparently the heavier you are, you are also more likely to get diabetes. And here these are the age of people that mostly have diabetes. And so can tell by looking at the glucose starting from 75, and it gets really dense between actually it starts from 150 and it gets very dense between these values. Okay, and here's a correlation matrix. So as we can see, with glucose is the darkest, so therefore it does have the most correlation. Like, it's 0.477 in comparison to the others. And okay, so what we're gonna do next is split the data. A 70-30 split of training and testing. So for the training, for the baseline model, we're going to use logistic regression. So here we have so here's a little bit about logistic regression. It maps any values to a number, so the outcome, it maps the outcome into a 0 or 1, and that's what we have here, fitting the data here, and these are the results. Where is it? So baseline model gives us an accuracy of 0.74. This is not really good, because for a training model to be at least accurate, it has to be at least 80%, and 74% is basically it's as good as a random choice. And so what we're gonna do is we can improve it by tuning the hyperparameters. So I'm gonna use three parameters. That's for logistic regression. So that's C. C is the regularization strength. I also implemented the solver algorithm, and max iter, that's optimization algorithm. Again, so as we can see, a C regularized the strength. The model, it controls the amount of shrinkage, and basically, so it reduces the chance of overfitting. Actually, no, because there's more shrinkage, there's more potential for the overfitting. And yeah, solver, that's the solver algorithm. And max iter, so increasing the value of max iter can find a better local minimum for the algorithm, but also increase the running time. But that shouldn't matter much because the dataset itself is small. So yeah. so so these are the values that we use, and to find the potential best value, we're going to use grid search. So that's what grid search does. It search it will go through all the combinations of these hyperparameters and fit the best model for each combination, and fit a model using the best combination that it gathered from here. So as we can see, the combination of hyperparams that result in the best score are these. So what I'm going to do is create a new parameter grid using just these values that I'll consider the best, and for the final, we don't really get an improvement because the accuracy is still 75% from 74%. So I think the inaccuracy of the prediction model, it boils down to the data itself. Maybe there's more features that need to be implemented, or maybe it's a problem after the imputation process. Maybe there's too much randomness that are not accurate to real life values. So yeah, so what we learned so far is we can we can load the data, pre-process it. We also did statistical analysis. We draw a conclusion based on the visuals that we draw before training the data itself, and then splitting the data and training it, and then getting the metrics, getting the evaluation metrics, and then based on that, we can improve those metrics using hyperparameter tuning. So yeah, that's all. We only get an improvement of 0.01, but yeah. Thank you for watching, and good night.